It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. Joining us today is Dr. Sugumaran. Dr. Sugumaran is a highly experienced professional in the fields of carbon management, climate governance, greenhouse gas accounting, carbon verification, ESG assurance, and carbon capture, utilization, and storage. He is a dual ISO 14064 lead verifier with credentials from British Standards Institutions and VRS certification, both GAB accredited, and currently serves as the CEO of CSEQ Asia, specializing in carbon and carbon capture utilization storage, as well as CEO of ED Group Berhad. Dr. Sugumaran holds a Doctor of Business Administration in Carbon Management and a PhD in Digital Economy. He is also among the practitioners in Malaysia holding dual ISO 14064 lead verifier credentials. His professional experience covers ISO 14061, ISO 14062, and ISO 14063, the verified carbon standards and the clean development mechanism methodologies. His work combines technical expertise with practical industry experience, particularly in carbon management, technology commercialization, energy transition, and Malaysia's CCUS initiative. He is also the founder of CarbonScans.ai, an AI-powered platform focused on greenhouse gas measurement and reporting. With such extensive expertise and practical experience in the carbon and climate field, we are truly honored to have Dr. Sugumaran with us today. Dr. Sugumaran, thank you so much for joining us. We are delighted to have you with us and we look forward to learning from your insights and experience. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Sugumaran. Dr. Sugumaran, please introduce yourself again and then take the floor. The session is all yours. We are really looking forward to this.
Thank you very much. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yeah. Thanks for a wonderful introduction. So I would like to thank Sadia to organize this event and Dr. Abdul Sattar for the invitation and warm welcome. So first of all, Assalamualaikum and thank you so much to allow me to have a speak and share my experience. Okay, actually, I think much of my introduction has been highlighted here. So actually, why I come to this industry, I think one of the main reason is my passionate to heal our mother nature. I think this is going to be my tagline. Always this is my tagline where I believe that doing something back to that mother nature and what I'm doing is directly is related to reduce the carbon the footprint in the whole world and also indirectly to what they call to eliminate any kind of natural disaster. So this is what makes me so passionate in involving this industry. Okay, I think without due delay, I'm going to go to my slide. So, okay. Sata, are you going to share my slide or shall I share my screen? Sadia, can you, you would like to share the screen or shall I share from my side the screen for my presentation?
Sir, please share your screen.
Can everyone see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically, what I'm going to share is more on the fundamentals. I think all of us are here. I'm not sure because based on Sadia's explanation, she says some of them are students and some of them are industrialists. So let me share what I can share most. Probably some of you all have more experience on this industry and I've gone through this kind of ISO fundamentals in preparing the GHG report or doing the carbon reporting. Nevertheless, probably I can share little so that can enhance whatever your knowledge. So basically, my passion and whatever I'm doing is more likely towards carbon accounting. In the market, we have a carbon accounting and also we have a ESG's accounting also. So ESG is preparing sustainable report based on the ESG, and also some of the industry, they're focusing more on carbon reporting. But then looking at this current situation, carbon reporting plays a major role because it's directly approaching the carbon footprint, where most of the international European businesses, they're looking for this kind of report. Okay, let me just go a little more on what is about carbon reporting. Okay, so what we are going to cover today is why GHG measurement matters. Okay, that means the bigger picture of GHG measurement. Okay, what is ISO 1464, and then what is scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, how a GHG inventory is built, why the independent check matters, and verification, why the verification matters, the future, and you place in it the carrier, the market, what's coming, why this measurement, why the whole world talking about GHG measurement and these things. Okay. 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 So first of all, what they mean by you cannot manage what you cannot manage what you cannot measure. See, the whole world talking about reducing carbon footprint. We want to reduce the carbon footprint. We want to make sure that we have the target set, means whichever target set we want to achieve the target. And all of them talking that, but you cannot manage or you cannot reduce whichever you cannot measure. So I just talking to some of my clients today. They say they are planting trees. They say they are very much aggressive in planting trees. I say you plant trees, very good. By planting trees, what you achieved? Yes, you say you achieved. You're doing something for the nature. Fine. What are you doing for the nature? Okay, it's a very broad kind of concept. Everyone talking about. Okay, I'm doing a lot of natural kind of helping the nature, doing that, doing this. But is it measurable? The whole world now we are talking about carbon footprint. The carbon is going higher and higher in the air, and all the countries have a measurement. In fact, I'll come to Pakistan also. Pakistan also have certain kind of commitment to reduce the carbon. So it's all measurable. Go down to the measurable. That means you measure. Okay, let's say if you plant one tree, how much carbon footprint you can reduce? Maybe probably certain X amount of kilogram. Fine. Now you're looking at a bigger picture. Maybe Pakistan have a target to reduce 10 million metric tons. So you already contributed a small part of what is being committed, a big picture. That means measurement. Measurement is very important. So how the measurement can be achieved? You want to achieve the measurement, you must have a methodology. There's so many standards, but normally why we are touching GHG protocol? We are talking about the ISO measurement because ISO is a standard measurement where it's recognized worldwide. It's kind of like a language where understand by everyone. So it's recognized language and the standard is recognized standard, acceptable worldwide. Okay, that means that's what I mean by you cannot manage what you cannot measure. You must measure first, then you manage, then you do an activity to reduce that amount of carbon footprint. Okay, now I have done a small research. Hopefully, this is correct. Okay, so Pakistan, the third national determination contribution, they have set a target, September 2025. Okay, they set a target 50% cut in project emission by 2035, 17% own resources, 33% conditional international support. So Pakistan have their own target of reduce the carbon emission. Okay, the link most people miss is that the conditional 33% depends on international climate finance, and climate finance flows to those who can produce credible verified emission data. Okay, that means no measurement, no verification data, no access to the fund. That means basically, even though we want to access to the fund, they need to have a specific measurement, a recognized measurement for this target to be achieved. Okay, that means For your career, I'm not sure how many of y'all will be a consultant and how many of y'all are in the range of you're working for some companies to do this reduction. But for your carriers, Pakistan own institution already training officials and GHG inventory. That means Pakistan also, I believe that they are also taking a lot of effort in make sure that the expertise are there, everything. That means the demand for people who can do this is real and growing. Okay, that means this is why we are here today. That means there's a huge demand. I tell you, the whole world is talking about this, what they call this reporting, this standard, this greenhouse gas reporting, ESG reporting, everything. So now it's not a topic of each country, it's topic of the whole global. So that's why we are here to understand what is actually this ISO standard about. Okay. When we talk about ISO standard, we actually categorize into 3 standards. That means ISO 1464-1, ISO 1464-2, and ISO 1464-3. You see, you have to complete these 3 standards to become a full-fledged verifier. Some of them, maybe they have just completed ISO 14641 and they don't do 2, suddenly they do 3. It doesn't work like that. So what they mean by ISO standard, ISO 1464-1, the organization level. That means it's basically how an organization quantify and report its own GHG inventory. Usually, when these things done in an organization level, they have a scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. That means that's how they categorize their scopes in their total carbon emission. That means basically it's more on this preparing the report on the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. This is what ISO 1464-1 all about. What about ISO 1464-2? So once you identified, okay, now you got the X amount of carbon emission, okay, for all the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, then you have to quantify emission reduction removal. That means you have to prepare a project paper. Okay, how are you going to, like example now, you're talking about organization have carbon emission X, they already identified. Next, they have to prepare a paperwork how to reduce the carbon. Basically, it's more like they say they want to change their lights to LED lights because electricity directly relate to carbon emission. So they want to reduce electricity. Or maybe they want to use a solar. They want to use a solar panel. So this is project level. So they have to follow the standard of set by ISO 1464-2. What about ISO 1464-3? That means once all these things, the emission, all be identified for you to do the verification. That means this is for the most for the verifier to verify whether whatever you have done is accurate or not. That means you're following the standard or not. This is a standard talking about ISO 1464-3. There is a more on the verification part. So far, it's clear. Let me pull out some points to discuss with you. Sorry, just give me a minute. Sorry. So now let's look at how GHG protocol and ISO 1464 connected. Okay, see everyone, I'm sure that now there's so many standards are talking everywhere. So mostly everyone is confused on what standards talks what. Okay, so basically GHG protocol defines what to count. That means talking about this carbon footprint, everything. GHG protocol is the one defines what to count. Whereas ISO 1464 is a define the process, how to quantify, report, and verify. That means they set the guideline. That means it's a guideline because international standard is what ISO all about. That means there's a standard guideline to calculate and verify and report. Because say now sometimes they want to go for the government. Sometimes governments want to identify. Say now you're talking to the government. You say, okay, I have my carbon footprint is X amount. I'm doing reduction. So all this is a process. So for this process to be standardized, a standard to be governed, the process is what they call it ISO 1464 standard. Okay, that means we follow this standard. There's many standards, but mostly the standard that has been recognized worldwide is ISO 1464. In fact, for carbon credit registration also, they will look for this standard. Okay, so that means basically ISO 1464 is define the process, how to quantify, report, and verify the grammar that makes this official. So GHG protocol is a vocabulary. ISO 1464 is a grammar that makes it official and checkable. Okay, let me see. Okay. Okay, so that means let me go a bit deeper. What is scope 1, scope 2, scope 3? Like just now I was mentioning that in ISO 1464-1, okay, it's what they call it's split to three scopes: scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Okay, so basically, just a layman language, what is scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 is scope 1 is what you burn directly. Say in your factory, example, I'm talking about the manufacturers. Okay, we are doing to a sort of a IS carbon reporting for the manufacturer. So when we mention about scope 1, what you burn, what he burned directly, that means maybe the fuel in boiler, generator, company vehicle. That means what you burn directly means the fuel. I'm talking about the fuel that you used to fuel the boiler. Okay, now once the fuel is used, it is creating CO2. So that is a carbon emission. The fuel is using for generator. Okay, it's creating CO2. That is considered carbon emission. Company vehicle is direct company vehicle that they use the company using fuel. So that is considered carbon emission. So basically, scope 1 is they're talking about all the related direct substance that been, I mean, they're using a fuel, where they're using a fuel. Basically, fuel is the one creating a CO2. Okay, that is considered your direct contribution in creating the carbon. That means basically you're responsible. That means your activity in creating a carbon for your own business. That means you are running your own business. So whatever carbon you're creating, you're responsible for the carbon you're creating. That's why they call it scope 1. Scope 2 is basically is electricity. It means say now like in Malaysia we have our own emission factor. Our electricity board, they have decided, okay, now we use 1 kilowatt of electricity. What is your carbon emission? It belongs to you. So that means if the company using X amount of electricity, then they are subject to that carbon footprint because they're using the electricity for their own purpose. So the whichever carbon footprint, whichever carbon causes by the usage of electricity, it belongs to the company. You all can ask how that carbon can be created by electricity, because a very layman language, for you to produce electricity, most countries using coal power plant. So the coal you burn is creating electricity. So that means X amount of coal that created CO2, which X amount of electricity created that you're using, that particular CO2 is belongs to you. So that's how you are responsible for your electricity that you're using. But depending on the grid factor, they call it grid factor. Okay, what about scope 3? Everyone else in your value chain. That means your supplier. Okay, what they call your supplier to your, let's say you're buying a raw material. You're buying raw material, the supplier supplying the raw material to you. So whichever carbon emission caused by the supplier's transportation, it belongs to you. That's called scope 3. And you are selling back your items. Okay, when you sell back your items, okay, that means whatever fuel contribution towards the transportation out is, that means inbound and outbound, both also comes under scope 3. So you are responsible for that particular carbon emission. So usually scope 3 usually the largest, 70 to 80% of the total, but you don't start there. Usually companies, they start with scope 1 and scope 2. Very rare they do scope 3. As long as a company can provide scope 1 and scope 2 is enough. In Malaysia, yes, we are tightening the laws. At the moment, the government says that scope 1 and scope 2 is enough, because scope 3 is very, very technical and very difficult to compile. That's why doing this kind of carbon emission, that pulling up data, making all the report is very tedious. So that's why we came out with our own AI to assist doing this reporting. Okay. Now let's say we just take an example of a textile. Say like maybe I just quote one of textile, Faisalabad textile, Faisalabad textile. Let me see, I got something here. Okay, so Faisalabad, okay, Faisalabad textile, scope 1 is a gas in their boiler. Okay, that means the gas they burn in their boiler to do the processing is considered scope 1. Scope 2 is their grid electricity. That means the electricity they used to power the whole operation is scope 2. Scope 3 is that means the scope 3 is a cotton from suppliers and the shipping to Europe. That means now they're getting the cotton from the suppliers and then they're shipping to Europe all their finished product. So when that means this is basically a scope 3. That means when a Europe buyer asks their carbon data, they're asking this manufacturer to become measurable. And you see, this is happening. Okay, that's why many European buyers are start asking carbon report, because you see the ideology is they want to make sure that we are being responsible citizen of the world to make sure that we have less carbon emission of our production. Of course, we can't avoid, we can't have zero kind of carbon, but yes, there is carbon, but they want to make sure that they want a carbon report. Let me say, example, now you give a carbon report this year. They want to know whether you are taking action to reduce your carbon emission. That's why every year they do a carbon report. They always based on the previous year. What is your previous year? That means from previous year, now how much you have reduced the carbon. I mean, are you taking any measurable action, a step towards reducing the carbon emission in that whole world? So this is the whole idea. That means all boils from that. Okay. Okay. So that means okay, how is the GHG inventory is built? Okay, that means I'm talking about the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, how it is built. Okay, usually they have six steps to do it. Usually when they prepare a carbon report, usually they're based on, they identify the boundary. Okay, that means they call it organization's boundary. That means they'll identify your belongs to which boundary, because this boundary will determine that are you, I mean, the carbon emission, because this boundary is more like it's more on the organization entity, how's the equity, or how is the control. There for a few elements to decide. That means, are you controlling the equity of the company, or are you controlling the share of the company? That means, if at certain parameters, maybe you are not fully responsible for that emission. Maybe you say you're an organization, so you have a share in a companies. Maybe you're having a 50% shares or 40% shares. Another person having another 60% shares. So whichever carbon emission created in that company, maybe you only have certain percentage depending on your boundary, what kind of control you have. Okay. And then operational boundary. That means you have to identify scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. That means always in a company they'll identify scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Of course, you have to collect activity data. You have to collect the fuel usage, electricity, the traveling distance of your supplier and your staff. Okay, and then usually once you have this, then you have a factor. Okay, you want to calculate emission factor. Maybe emission factor, say for electricity in your Pakistan is different from electricity emission factor in Malaysia. That means maybe both countries using, say, both operation in the factory using same kind of electricity usage, maybe say 1 megawatt, something like that. Maybe 1 megawatt there is much more higher than 1 megawatt in Malaysia, because we have a emission factor. It's not same, with the amount same. Same goes to your other factors. Okay, and then once you have this, then you calculate and consider. That means you calculate always. This calculation of carbon emission comes in that ton. You calculate in ton. So once you prepare, then you have to come up with a structured report, a GHG report. That means a GHG structure report, a standard report recognized by GHG protocol. Okay, because the report methodology also, we have a standard format to follow. Okay, this is how we done. So basically, two concepts worth remembering. You have to remember two concepts basically in this kind of reporting. Okay, emission factor. Emission factor, the conversion number that turns activity into emission. That means your activities. I mean, what I mean by activities, your usage of electricity or all the activities involved in the industry is what an emission. So you have to use the right local factor. Pakistan means you have to use a Pakistan factor to calculate your emission factors. Okay, I think Pakistan have published their factor also. Okay, because end of the day, if you're using a wrong factor, then you have a wrong number. Wrong number means is basically it's not accurate reporting. And when it's not accurate reporting, if it's used, this report is used for any international kind of sometimes international companies ask for a report for suppliers. If they're using a wrong report, it won't be acceptable. Okay. So for base year, your first year of measurement becomes a benchmark. That means these two factors they're using. It means use base factor. That means base factor means which year you're starting your reporting, that year become your benchmark. That means based on your benchmark, you compare to the continuous year. That means you want to prove that you are doing a carbon, what they call carbon mitigation, reduction of carbon. You have to compare with your first year of reporting. Okay. So now anyone can produce a number. Verification is what makes the world trusty. Okay. That means let's look at what once this verification. That means once a person obtain a certificate as a ISO 1464 lead verifier, that means he is authorized to do a verification. Okay, what a verifier does, that means usually a person when he acquire the certificate, what he does is he do independent review. That means he will review on all the data provided to him, the boundary data, the emission factor, and the calculation. Okay, he will review the documents. Okay, then he sit on the audit and the interviews. He interview whoever provide the data, he interview them. Okay, and you raise findings and gaps error, and then the organization have corrected. That means usually verifier, how the process is, he will sit on that interviews, and then he raise finding and gaps on the report, because the report is going through the report. That's a verifier job. The organization prepare the report, the verifier go through the report. Okay, and then once there's some, we find some gaps, you have to give back to the organization to correct them and give it back to them. And finally, he will issue a verification opinion, a formal statement of accuracy and competence. That means he will issue a statement. So a verifier, he must be credible enough. He must be certified, and he's not ordinary. He must be certified by accredited body. You know, I was talking to Sadia. There's many training companies are providing this kind of certification, ISO 14. But end of the day, what is the credibility of that particular company providing certification? Because not all training company provide certification is considered accredited. So that is very important point to analyze and to make sure that whichever certificate given or you are taking the certificate must be from accredited body, like Exemplar Global. They are world standard recognized body. And the companies, the agencies who are running the training, usually VVB is the one running the training. VVB is a verification validation bodies. They are running a training at the same time. They also do this assurance. That means they are the international verification bodies. When international verification bodies run the trainings, so this kind of trainings is accepted. And also in future, when let's say you are doing a verification for a company, you want to go for carbon credit. So this also the agencies or that like Vera, they're going to register a carbon credit. They will go through your certification, and they will ensure that this is acceptable because you have been trained. That means you're qualified. So it's all linked. So that's why when we start, you have to start with the right channel, right methodology. Okay. The pressure to measure carbon is only going up. Yes. See, I think now we are talking about global warming, whole thing disaster. I think in Malaysia, we are talking about El Nino. I don't know, we got a report next year going to be the worst. Every year, record heat and floods raise urgency. The science doesn't negotiate. That means, recently I give a talk in one of the universities. Then we do the research. For the past 30 years, we never find our carbon footprint reducing. It keep on going higher and higher every year. That the one going to be affected is our future generation, our grandchildren. They're going to be affected. So it's our job. Okay, that means the temperature is not going down. Every year, every day, the carbon keep on going up, because one of the reason is when we done a research, we found that every year we have almost the total carbon emission, the whole world is almost 80 gigaton total carbon emission. But the nature, like Amazons or the sea, can only capture up to 40 gigaton. The balance 40 gigaton is always accumulated in the air. So actually, the thing is coming up very, very fast. Because why? See, now it's accumulated in the air. So we only absorbing half of it. But then we are not leaving the jungle. We keep on cutting the jungles. They keep on creating a lot of emission, much more higher emission. When you create much more higher emission, so it's not reducing, it's going higher and higher. So I think at least what we are trying to do is we are trying to find a way to make sure measure, and then we find a way to reduce. And the awareness is important. That's why it is very, very important for us to have awareness of this stuff, what we are doing. Then, okay, the pressure from UN and Paris. Okay, that means they also have a reporting obligation tighten every 5-year cycle. That means they are trying to make it more tighter and tighter. That means because of the global, because see, we are all in the same house. So it doesn't matter one person's, I mean, there's a hole, one person never patch up the hole, is going to be safe. He also going to be stuck up together. So we are the whole world, we are responsible to make sure that we do something to reduce that carbon footprint. Okay. And then if you're looking at the whole world, now they're talking in Malaysia, it's very top topic now, this climate, carbon emission, everything. The whole world is talking. So now everyone is going for this kind of industry. They want to find way to reduce the carbon, everything. Okay. Now Europe is making a carbon and condition trade. Okay. So now there's critical, now is going, they're talking about CBAM. CBAM is carbon broad border adjustment mechanism. Okay, that means if any stuff like like steel, everything, when you supply to Europe, you have to ensure that you have your carbon report. If you don't have your carbon report, when you supply your steel, they will come out with your own calculation, and then they will tax you much more higher. That's why the reason why we must have a carbon report is to prove that our carbon emission is not high. Europe already put a guideline. Anything goes to Europe. For now, they're starting with steel, cement, certain stuff. Later, they're going to go for all the stuff. Later, they're going to go for your product. Okay, that means product footprint. The EU is moving to require carbon footprint for product themselves. That means whichever products. Now you see, if you take a product in the supermarket, you see they have what they call contents. They have a sugar contents. Everyone look at the sugar contents or other contents. But future, they're going to have a carbon footprint content also for all the product. So they're moving there because the idea is whichever stuff we are doing, we have to make sure that we control our carbon footprint. Okay, supply chain view. European buyer must account for their entire supply chain. That means what they mean by that is maybe now some company says that it's too, I mean, it's too far for me, so I don't need to do a report. But just remember something. Okay, a big companies, a big supplier, when he have obligation to do a carbon report to his client, to his buyer in Europe, mostly Europe, whichever small supplier supplying to him, they also must provide at least scope 1 and scope 2, because if they don't provide scope 1 and scope 2, their report, the bigger supplier cannot fulfill their report 1, 2, 3, because they have to fulfill 1, 2, 3. So it's all chain. That means it's entire supply chain is related. So that means no one can say that no, I no need to do because I'm not directly supplying. No, it's okay, you're not directly supplying, but if you are linked with another supplier, then you are obligated. That means now this is becoming a pressure for all the business also. So all of them have to be prepared to prepare the carbon report. Okay. Okay, that's why in this field, your credibility is your product. That means, okay. Now you have to make sure that you go for, if you go and take your certification, you must make sure that it's accredited training. That means it's recognized, because if it's not recognized, then it's all linked. Okay. Say if you recognize credential, say your competence is recognized by auditor, regulator, you carry weight. That means if it's not, if it's recognized, that means it carry weights. Okay, that means now in this industry we have two main credentials that we're talking. They call it lead implementer and lead verifier. Okay, for ISO 1464 on carbon reporting, basically we categorize the two. One is implementer. Implementer is the guy, they go for a course, maybe they certify themselves ISO 1464, they prepare the report. They prepare, that means lead implementer, usually the company staff or directly doing the report for the company. That means they have to know how to prepare the report they prepare. Lead verifier is another angle where they check the report. The consultant, usually they become a lead verifier, they take for lead verifier course because they are qualified as a verifying the report. Usually a lead verifier or verifying person cannot verify his own company. That means if he's doing a report for his own company, he have to be, the report has to be verified by another person or another consultant. Okay. Okay. So the certificate is only part of what you need. Okay. Don't choose your price on convenience. That means what I'm trying to tell here is certifying in this industry, you must make sure that you going for a credible kind of trainings, credible kind of accreditation. Okay, that means you must make sure that this accreditation is worldwide or standardized worldwide, because whichever you're going to certify now, the report you're going to prepare, the whole world speaks the same language. Basically, if you can become a consultant or preparing a verify in your country, you also can be a very consultant verify in any other countries, right? Because all of them are talking about same standard. Okay, that means you must make sure that you to a network of technical expert and you can call for real. That means you must hands-on on the technicality. That means you must have expertise on the technicality when you prepare the report. Okay, and then to the tool that make audit ready reporting practical and not painful. That means you must make sure that you're preparing a report, a practical report. Okay. That means now the carbon economy is already here. The only question is whether you are meeting prepared or unprepared. Start now, train properly, build the credential. This new economy will demand. Okay, that means basically, okay, before I end my small presentation here, probably this is just a glimpse of what's the whole industry, because I believe that you have to start somewhere. Okay, the important is you have to make sure that the industry is coming, the impact is coming, the big wave is coming. So carbon reporting is one of the essential for all of you all to be keep yourself, okay, and then prepare for the bigger wave of the market, because in Malaysia we have huge demand on this carbon reporting because we have a pressure from our governments. In fact, I think we are our carbon tax is going to be parliament next month, and then there's another law coming for all that business. Our business registration department SSM, they have announced that they're coming out with a new law. They call it X777. That means they make sure that all companies that have a certain emission and above, they have to do the reporting. Otherwise, the director will be penalized. Because why? The pressure is from top. The governments want to reduce the carbon emission, so they need to make sure that all the companies are taking effective role in reducing their own carbon emission. Okay, why the government? Because the pressure is from United Nations. The whole world is talking about global warming, the global disaster. So they are looking for responsibilities from all that members of this United Nations to come together and reduce the carbon emission. Okay, so I think basically that's a thing that I need to share. So is there any question that I can share? No? Is there any question that I can able to, any question from audience? Sadia, can you assist me? Okay, let me see. I
Yes,
think
sir.
yeah.
Our first question is from Zamir. How ISO 14064 is different or similar to Vera or gold standard?
Sorry. Wait. Where's the? Let me see the question. Okay. I mean, sorry. What is the question? I cannot see that.